turned out the Miami Beach flooding didn't result from a sudden increase in water volume in the Atlantic Ocean. It was the result of a brand new kind of hurricane that came on shore in Florida. A hurricane that made scientists question whether or not we needed a new category of hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale, a category which took into consideration sustained winds of 175 miles an hour, with gusts up to 200. In any case, there's no worse feeling than to crawl out of bed in the morning and splash through 6 inches of swirling water on your way to the bathroom, especially if you're a billionaire. The highest point in the state of Florida is 312 feet above sea level. The highest point in southern Florida is 86 feet above sea level. The highest point in the Florida Keys is 18 feet above sea level. The official elevation of Miami Beach is 4 feet. Kind of makes a landowner in Miami Beach wake up and smell the coffee. By the way, do you know what they call a finished basement in Key West? A swimming pool. Tom called a hurried staff meeting at the Neuschloss Linderhof in Hood River. Otto and Amelie were invited to attend. Listen up, guys, Tom said when they were all seated at the table on the balcony. Hurricane Magda just blew through Miami Beach. I got a call from NOAA this morning. His phone is ringing off the hook. They need all the help they can get in the southeast region. Who wants to fly to Florida? Frank Maxwell, the hotshot from Canoga Park, California, shook his head. Not me, boss, he said. I'm doing a great job right here. Signed up 7 families last week using the new technique we spoke about. Those rich folks sure love saving money. Benny Cavendish, the newest member of the team, shook his head as well. I'm with Frank, said Benny. We got our hands full right here on the West Coast. Can't somebody else pitch in? Orlando Ramos, the token Latino team member, also shook his head. We're making very good progress, he said, especially among the second and third generation families in the Hispanic community in Los Angeles. If we stop now, we may lose their trust. Perhaps I didn't make myself clear, said Tom. We're going to Florida. Especially you, Orlando. The Hispanic millionaires in Florida need your help. What about the rooms you guys have rented, asked Otto. You still have 4 months to go on the second 6 months of the lease. No, we're coming back, said Tom. This shouldn't take more than a couple of weeks. By the way, Otto, you're invited to come along as well. May I ask, what is the rush? Asked Amelie. And why do you want my Otto to go along? He isn't used to dealing with rich guys. When Hurricane Magda hit Miami Beach, the entire South Beach area was inundated, replied Tom. State Road A1A was awash with flotsam and jetsam. Of course, they've had hurricanes before, but this one set some serious records. You could catch a wave and ride a surfboard from Collins Avenue to Alton Road. The Fontainebleau Hotel had salt water on the second floor. It was a come-to-Jesus moment for many of our wealthiest friends. They want to be on the first bus to the Bob. But you said Sanctuary won't be ready for occupancy for at least another 2 years, said Benny. At least that's what I've been telling my people. They're beefing up the staff, said Tom. I can't imagine that's going to help much. I'm afraid we got caught with our pants down. In any case, NOAA wants us there to manage the panic. Why me? Asked Otto. Like Amelie said, I'm not exactly prepared to deal with rich people. Here's where we made our second mistake, admitted Tom. We figured once we had the elites signed on, the supports would just naturally fall in line. Even though the ratio is 8-1, we thought we'd have plenty of time to settle the elites in before we focused on recruiting support folks. Turns out elites can't survive without supports. I'm not just talking about maids and butlers. I'm talking about food prep, pig farmers, fruit growers, doctors, nurses, scientists, social engineers, computer geeks, whatever it takes to make an underground city self-supporting. So you want me to go to Montana and start a pig farm? Asked Otto. No, I want you to go to Florida and organize a recruiting effort for support people, said Tom. All kinds of support people. You already know the whole sanctuary strategy. I can't think of anyone more qualified to get the ball rolling. How about hiring a public relations firm? Asked Benny. That might do the trick. Nope, said Tom. We want to keep Sanctuary on the down low for as long as possible. There's a school of thought that contends the people who aren't invited to the party might just make a fuss. I'm still not sure I'm the right man for this job, said Otto. What makes you think I have the qualifications? To be perfectly honest, you're the only option available, said Tom. We recruited our orchestration teams based on a comfort level dealing with elites. I'm not sure any of them know how to talk to people who aren't extremely wealthy. Blue collar stuff, like being familiar with sports teams and scores. I'm from Germany, said Otto. I don't even understand the infield fly rule. I'd be willing to pay you what we agreed to for the rooms here at the B&B, said Tom. Plus, of course, we will still honor our contract. I think what Otto is trying to say, said Amelie forcefully, is that he thinks he can do the job just fine. I'd best bone up on my Cubano accent, grumbled Orlando. Doesn't appear we have a lot of say in the matter. Do you at least have a description of the jobs we need to fill and contact information for potential candidates for those positions, asked Otto. I presume we want to recruit supports from the whole country. If you don't, perhaps Amelie can help. Her reservation form is world famous. I'm afraid we hadn't planned that far out, apologized Tom. We thought we had a good 20 years before we'd have to face some of these decisions. I'd appreciate it if Amelie can help with the forms. What answers did they get, asked Amelie. When you say we, I can't believe you were a member of the planning group. That was 30 years ago. You can't be more than 40 now. You would have been 10 at the time. 45 actually, said Tom, but you're right. My father was head of the team tasked with building a prototype for Sanctuary and evaluating the results. The first residential building was part of the prototype, as was the Advanced Breeder Nuclear Reactor. It seemed like I was on the team since they held all their meetings in our library. I'd bring in refreshments and dawdle while they discussed the project. We didn't have cell phones back then, although we were the first house on the block to have access to the internet. That's one reason they met at our house. The other was my mom. She made the best damn chocolate chip cookies in the universe. Tom leaned back in his chair and scratched his head. I read the final report, he said. I'll try to recall the gist of their findings. The first thing that jumped out and hit me in the eye was the cost of the prototype. They spent $3.5 billion over a 3-year period. Now, I was used to being around money, but that was more than I could fathom as a teenager. Here's what they had in mind when they started. Residence buildings line the walls of the cave. Every apartment at the front of a residence building has its own balcony overlooking the street. The top 10 floors of each residence building are reserved for elites. The bottom 20 floors are reserved for support staff. Common areas in the middle of the cave are reserved for commerce, recreation, and workspaces. At the bottom of the cave are the waste processing facilities, reservoirs for drinking water, and HVAC equipment. They left the top of the common area open where they planned to create parks and open spaces. Hiking trails, bike paths, lots of shrubs, maybe a few of those German family gardens where residents can grow their own fruit and vegetables if they want to. The middle 30 floors are reserved for shops, gyms, libraries, schools, hospitals, computer complexes, scientific laboratories, and farms. The complex itself is designed to support roughly 500,000 people, 50,000 elites, and 400,000 supports. If the top of the cave was open to the elements, wouldn't that kind of defeat the purpose, asked Benny? I mean, if climate change made the planet uninhabitable, that would preclude opening the windows to let in a little fresh air. No, I meant open to the top of the cave, said Tom. Solar tubes are intended to pipe natural sunlight into the cave. Throughout Sanctuary, sunlight from the solar tubes will be augmented by artificial lighting, which will be regulated to correspond to daytime and nighttime. Wherever possible, we're trying to simulate a typical circadian cycle. What are the anticipated drawbacks, asked Frank. According to our social scientists, the main drawback will be claustrophobia, said Tom. Even with artificial lighting everywhere, it's hard to disguise the fact that people are living inside a cave. Although the solar tubes should bring natural sunlight into the cave, they don't even vaguely resemble the sun. We hope to cultivate an arboretum near the top of the cave. A canopy of leaves might help obscure the rocky nature of the caves. That doesn't help inside the house, said Otto. I like to look out my windows and see trees. Did they make a plan for that? At the time, the governors contracted out the initial design. The technology simply wasn't there, said Tom. Back then, the computer industry was in its infancy. We didn't have laptops or tablets or cell phones. Big mainframes ruled the world of commerce, but even a mainframe system that cost several $1,000,000 and took up a city block's worth of water-cooled basement space didn't have 1/10,000th the capacity of your cell phone. Today we can build virtual windows into the outside world on every wall of an apartment. Give each window a view of the Eiffel Tower or the Great Wall of China or a beach in Rio, or program the 3 separate scenes to switch every 4 hours, complete with opulent sunrises and sunsets. Tom took a deep breath. And then there were a million logistical problems to resolve, he said. How to shield the complex from prying eyes, how to pipe sunlight drawn down to the level where crops are being grown, where to put the pig pens so they didn't stink up the neighborhood, how to build a democratic infrastructure where everyone feels like they're an integral part of the process. Many of those problems have been solved, but that was then and this is now. In any case, we've got our work cut out for us. Pack up, everybody. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day. We've got planes to catch.